Hi, everybody. Welcome. Sports and Shorts with Swords. Episode 35. Just really cruising around here, so let's just do what we always do, and we'll hop right into the episode segment. Let's do it. When I think of number 35, one comes to mind. Talking about NBA superstar Kevin Durant, Phoenix Suns forward. He'll go down one of the greatest scorers ever to grace the hardwood. His 6'10 frame was made to dominate on the basketball court. Originally drafted second overall, just behind Greg Oden to Portland by the Seattle Supersonics, who relocated to Oklahoma City. They should be another team back in Seattle, but that's a whole nother thing. And his one season in Seattle, pretty good. He won Rookie of the Year, averaging over 20 points a game as a teenager. Only the third person to do that behind Carmelo Anthony and LeBron James. But numerous accolades: 13-time All-Star, 2 All-Star MVPs, 6-time All-NBA first team, 4-time All-NBA second. He's led the league in scoring 4 times, 2 NBA championships with the Golden State Warriors. Some judge them, however. I don't. He was very important to those teams, and he did win MVP for both of those titles, so I'm not putting any asterisks on those titles or anything, but he only went to Texas for a year in college, did great things there. Jumped, he got his 35, retired there before jumping to the NBA. He's won 3 Olympic gold medals, part of USA. Excuse me, like I said, he's rocked the 35 in Seattle, OKC, Golden State, Brooklyn, and now is a Phoenix Sun. So expectations have, you know, I want to say never been higher, but they've been high in Phoenix before. But they're really high considering they have Devin Booker and Bradley Beal now. Yeah, this is title or bust, I think, for this team. One thing's for sure is you'll see Kevin Durant in the Hall of Fame. Another hooper, this one won't jump out to you right away because I was trying to grasp at which other ones because I had to have two in there or something. But journeyman Clarence Weatherspoon rocked 35 most of his career. His productive years were with the 76ers, where he became a great role player as an undersized NBA big. In college, he was a beast at Southern Miss, during the number 9 overall pick in the '92 draft. But some other 35s in the league worth mentioning: Isaac Okoro of the Cleveland Cavs, really like that guy, and Christian Wood of the LA Lakers. He's asked to relieve Anthony Davis as a backup, but Davis he's had a good start to the year. We'll see. And I love Okoro, like I said, in Cleveland. I think he should play lots. He does. But yeah, great defender, and his offensive game's is improving and improving. But my last basketball mention will be on the women's side. 6'6" Jonquel Jones, a beast inside and out. She won WNBA MVP in 2021 as a member of the Connecticut Sun. We saw what she can do with the New York Liberty. Sometimes a forgotten player, but clearly the best player in the finals for the Liberty. She's developed her game throughout her career too. She just didn't come in as a star. She won Most Improved in 2017, Sixth Woman of the Year in 2018, and she's the only WNBA player to win Most Improved Woman, Sixth Woman of the Year, as well as MVP. And she's not only a scorer, but she does the dirty work too, leading the league in rebounding 3 different times and blocks once. She's made WNBA All Defensive Team 3 times, and she's also playing abroad. Well, she has before. That's what the women have to do because they don't get as much money in America. But she's lit it up in Korea, China, and Russia before the invasion of Ukraine prompted her to leave that team. She's originally from Bahamas, but she represents Bosnia internationally from her time playing abroad. But going from the hardwood to the diamond, the first number 35 I'll mention is he'll be in the Hall of Fame, but he's a current player. I'm talking about Kate Upton's husband, Justin Verlander. He had been traded back to Houston this season after the debacle as a New York Met, but he's been in pretty good there, helping the Astros have a good little postseason run before getting knocked out. But yeah, he started his career in Detroit with the Tigers, a beast right out of the gate, winning Rookie of the Year. And then he'd win his first of 3 Cy Youngs and AL MVP in 2011. His third Cy Young may be his most impressive, though, as he missed the entire 2021 season due to Tommy John surgery, and he returned and dominated, winning AL Comeback of the Player of the Year as well. 9-time All-Star, two-time World Series champ, one with the Tigers, one with the Astros. Led the AL in strikeouts 5 times, wins 4 times, and ERA twice. all come together in that magical 2011 season when he achieved the triple crown, the pitching triple crown, which is when you get all three of those stats in one year. And he's an elusive member of the 3,000 strikeout club, sitting 13th for strikeouts. And he's got 3 no hitters in his career. Just a phenomenal career. Like I said, he's Hall of Fame bound for sure. The next 35 is a retired pitcher, another member of the 3,000 strikeout club. I'm talking about Phil Niekro, one of the greatest or perhaps the greatest knuckleball pitcher of all time. 24 seasons in the big leagues with 4 different franchises, 5 All-Star games, 4 Golden Gloves, lead the NL in wins twice and strikeouts once. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and his 35 is retired with the Braves, where he's also a member of the Hall of Fame, and where he threw his only no-hitter. But sticking with pitchers in the Hall of Fame, let's go with Mike Mussina. Moose, he played most of his career with the Orioles before joining the Yankees. And although he never won a Cy Young or World Series, he was a consistent pitcher throughout his career, winning at least 11 games in 17 straight seasons, an AL record. So he'd make 5 All-Star games, winning 7 Gold Gloves, and is a member of the Orioles Hall of Fame as well. One pitcher I'll mention that isn't in the Hall of Fame yet, San Diego Padre legend Randy Jones. He made 2 All-Star games and won the NL Cy Young in '76. But on his last start of the '76 season, he injured a nerve in his pitching arm that required exploratory surgery. So he was never able to regain that pre-surgery play he had, but he was still an effective pitcher. And he has the unfortunate record of being the only starting pitcher to win a Cy Young and possess a losing record, 100 and 123. But like I said, though, he's a legend in San Diego. He's in their Hall of Fame. His number 35 is retired by the franchise. And one of those players, where unfortunately injuries took away what could have been an even more promising career. But the last baseball player I'll mention is not a pitcher. He is far from it. I'm talking about the big hurt. Frank Thomas, first baseman, designated hitter. He would crush that ball. He's part of the 500 home run club with his 521 home runs. Have him 20th all time on the list, tied with Willie McAvoy and Ted Williams. Not bad company. And no asterisks needed with the big hurt at all. Never, ever been involved with PEDs. Never in any allegations towards him. He's just a big dude. He was one of the few players that said, yeah, interview me for the Mitchell Report in 2007. But yeah, he couldn't just hit bombs. He was a good hitter too. Finishing his career 301 for an average is pretty dope. But his best years were at the White Sox, where he did spend the majority of his career winning winning American League MVP in back-to-back seasons in '93 and '94. 5 All-Star game appearances, 4 Silver Sluggers. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and his 35 is retired with the White Sox, where he also has a big bronze statue outside the stadium. So phenomenal career for him. Leaving the diamond for the hockey rink, the first number 35 I'll mention is a goaltender, Tony Esposito. Blackhawks legend, is one of the pioneers of the ever so popular butterfly between the pipes. His brother, Phil, you might have heard of him, pretty good as well. Both brothers are in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Tony got his name on the Stanley Cup early on when he was a backup for Vachon in Montreal, and they swept the Blues. The Canadians left him, though, and Chicago picked him up. That's where he spent the rest of his career. He'd win the Calder Trophy for Best Rookie, 6 All-Star games, and the Vezina 3 different times. And he was one of the 2 goalies used in the historic '72 Summit Series between Canada and Russia. His 35 is hanging in Chicago. So the next player I'll mention is also a goaltender, an American legend, Mike Richter. Spent his entire career with the Rangers and was the starting goalie for the '94 Stanley Cup winning team with Mark Messier. He'd make 3 All-Star games in the NHL and played a few pretty big games for the USA hockey team. The latter winning a silver medal at the '02 Olympics. His 35 is retired by the Rangers. Only a 3rd player to get that privilege. And he's in the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, but surprisingly not in the NHL or in the Hockey Hall of Fame. So yeah, we'll see if he ever gets in there. I don't know if his numbers quite put him in. We'll see. But finishing with another great goalie, this one I watched a lot too, Pekka Rinne. Played his entire career with the Nashville Predators, retiring in 2021. Making 4 All-Star games, winning the Vezina in 2018. He's also represented Finland in a few different World Hockey Championships. Again, like Richter's numbers, I don't know if they're enough. They'll get him into the Hockey Hall of Fame. But his 35 is going to be hanging in Nashville, 100%. And the last 35 I'll mention goes to the gridiron. Not going to lie. Not a lot came to mind when I was thinking 35. But cornerback Enos Williams, Spent the first part of his career putting up amazing numbers under the radar as a Cardinal. Not a lot of people were watching him, but he'd make 4 All-Pros, 6 Pro Bowls. And the Cardinals were never a dominant team. Like I said, he'd play in one playoff game in 2001, just one playoff game his entire career in Arizona. But in 2001, he was traded to St. Louis Rams, where he'd slide over to free safety, just because of injuries in the secondary. You move where you got to move, and there he thrived as people expected. He'd earn All Pro, 2 Pro Bowl selections, and it was really exciting to see him in the postseason. And the Rams would make that run to the Super Bowl. He'd make huge plays, especially one against my Packers, where he'd pick off Favre twice and bring it to pay dirt. Also recovered a fumble in that game. Then the NFC title game, he picked off Donovan McNabb late to get his team to the Super Bowl, but there he met some guy named Tom Brady, where he'd have his Patriots win their Super Bowl. But Williams is 20th all time on the all-time interceptions list with 20, and of course he's in the Hall of Fame. So pretty good Jersey segment there. We'll jump right into the week of sports. It was a fun one. We'll quick time machine jump to last Monday, where the Lions hosted the Raiders on Monday Night Football. I predicted a really big beatdown by the Lions, and they did stat-wise, score-wise, not so much. They only won by 26-14, but if you look at the stats, they were pretty bad. And this would brutal display of football by the Raiders eventually led to Mark Davis making the move, firing Josh McDaniels, coach, and GM David Ziegler. Then it was announced that offensive coordinator Mick Lombardi was canned as well. They say the final straw that broke the camel's back was the lack of transactions to improve the team just before the deadline on October 31st. Once that passed, no move, they're like, you're out. Sent them packing. So Antonio Pierce is taking over the interim role in that position, and it looks like $80 million is owed to John Gruden and Josh McDaniels to not coach the Raiders. So that's not very big. But I did mention that deadline on the 31st. Some other big moves. The 49ers picking up Chase Young from the Commanders. That's huge. Like reuniting him with Bosa on that line, that's scary. Another move was the fire sale in Washington continuing. Montez Sweat getting shipped off to the Bears. Big move for the Bears. They inked him up right away. The Vikings with Cousins out for the year with that Achilles injury. They needed some help at quarterback. They went for Joshua Dobbs from the Cardinals. We'll get more into him later. But we're coming back to Week 8. We're leaving that Monday in the past. It's coming to Week 8. We started it with a Thursday match between the Titans and the Steelers. Everyone's favorite matchup between Will Levis and Kenny Pickett. But this was a back-and-forth game. A lot of field goals. Only touchdowns in the first 3 quarters were by the running backs, Najee Harris for the Steelers and Derrick Henry for the Titans. But then the fourth quarter with the Titans up, Kenny Pickett would lead a drive, hitting Deontay Johnson for a touchdown pass. Wild thing was, this was Johnson's first touchdown catch since Ben Roethlisberger threw him one. Wow, yeah, so it's been a bit. But yeah, Kenny Pickett, got to give him credit. 7th game-winning drive in his 20th start. I mean, that's meaning you're down a bunch, but it means he's leading them back. So I've given Pickett some hate on this show, but I'll give him props when he did well. Good on him. Tough go for the Titans. We'll see where they're going forward. But at least I feel with Levis, they know what they have at QB going forward. A lot better than Tannehill. But yeah, the earliest game on Sunday was this massive AFC matchup, which you're wondering why we sent it off to Germany, but they got it. So it started with Mahomes hitting Rashee Rice and Jerick McKinnon on touchdown passes, and they're up 14-0. And it's looking like the Dolphins might get a score before halftime. Tua hit Tyreek, who is getting harassed by his old team nonstop. But on this instance, he fumbled the ball. Ball was picked up by the Chiefs. It's looking like they're getting tackled. Then whoop, give it a lateral. They return it all the way to pay dirt. Boom, you're up 21-0 at halftime over the Dolphins. I don't even think Kansas City expected that. But, third quarter, Tua would hit Cedric Wilson for a touchdown pass, 21-7. Kansas City's next possession, Bradley Chubb forced the Mahomes fumble, and the Dolphins would recover. You're like, we're rolling. KC makes a good stop, and you're like, but wait. There was an unnecessary roughness call, which would give them the automatic first down. Then on the Dolphins' very next play, Raheem Mostert runs it in. You got a one-possession game here. And then the Dolphins would get another chance to tie it up. And on 4th and 10 in KC's territory, the snap would go right past Tua. He'd fall on it, turnover downs. KC gets the big win over in Deutschland. And Dolphins continue to struggle against teams with winning records. That's 0-3 now against them. So we'll see what happens when they come back to North America here. But Vikings Falcons, tell me if you thought this would turn out to be one of the best early games. You had Vikings starting quarterback Jaron Hall taking over after Cousins, and he got knocked out of the game. So that meant Josh Dobbs, who I alluded to earlier, just getting traded to this team on Tuesday, and like, all right, get in there. Wasn't a good start for him. Calais Campbell would sack him in the end zone for a safety, but man, this game was back and forth. The Falcons would get a big play on Jonnu Smith where he showed a tight end gear I didn't know they could hit on that 60-yard touchdown run. And, Dobbs struggled a bit. He had 3 fumbles in the game, but he was making it happen on his feet. He had an 18-yard touchdown run. And then just with over 2 minutes to go, Tyler Algier would run in a 5-yard touchdown run to give the Falcons a 4-point lead. And you're like, oh, this is it. But that's when the Josh Dobbs magic happened. He'd leave this drive with his feet scampering around shit, getting out, throwing the people he didn't even know their names yet. And then he did Brandon Powell for a game-winning touchdown with 22 seconds left on the clock. Again, what he did, legendary. He's a leader. He's a guy that makes you want to run through a wall for him. Big-time Vikings win. But on the other sideline, Arthur Smith, like, what are you doing with Bijan Robinson? You got Bijan Mustard sitting back there, and you're not even giving him the ball. Like, and when he did get touches, he did good things. Granted, he had the one fumble, but it seems like the last few weeks, I don't know, maybe he did something to get in the doghouse. But I think the Falcons want to start winning again. They got to play him. But Bears and Saints, that had a nice start with Tyson Bagent, man, throwing a fuck it and chuck it one up in the air to Cole Kmet, who had to make a great catch for the touchdown. Then the Saints would answer through Chris Olave, only for Kmet to get another touchdown. Only does catch touchdowns. But then Taysom Hill would catch a pass from Derek Carr to answer. And then the game would be tied going into the fourth before Taysom Hill would throw a touchdown this time to Juwan Johnson. Saints take the lead, take the win. Big win for them. My Packers, I even busted out the Packers jersey because, they were hosting the Rams team, missing Matthew Stafford, and you get Brett Rippon. The Rams defense fought, but they'd have no support from Rippon in that offense. And Green Bay, despite the game being just handed to them, they didn't look all that good. But we got a touchdown through Aaron Jones, and Luke Musgrave got his first touchdown, the rookie tight end. We needed that win. We'll take it. Rams, yikes, they look pretty struggling. But Commanders and Patriots looking to bounce back of some of their own struggles, and they'd find themselves 10 down in the second quarter after Brian Robinson would run one in for Washington. The Patriots would respond nicely, though. Mac Jones hitting Hunter Henry, the tight end, for a touchdown. Then Ramondre Stevenson taking 164 yards to give them the lead. And then you'd see a beautiful thrown ball by Sam Howell in the third to Jahan Dotson for a 33-yard touchdown. That makes you look like, man, how was that guy? He makes some weird plays, but then he'll have throws like that. You're like, damn. But Joey Sly would put Washington ahead in the third, and that's it. No more scoring the rest of the game. Commanders pick up a big win. Patriots continue to struggle. Bill Belichick really struggling with this team this year. But another big matchup, we thought, 2 teams with bird mascots, Seahawks, Ravens, but this was really one-sided. Geno Smith played awful in this game. You combine that with a Ravens team that was running the ball like the 1950s. They outran the Seahawks 298-28, including 2 touchdowns in by Gus Edwards and one by rookie Keaton Mitchell, who ran one from 40 yards out and finished with 138 yards rushing on 9 carries. Crazy. Odell Beckham would get his first touchdown catch of the season with a dope little dance, but that was from Tyler Huntley. As this game was so far out of reach, Lamar Jackson was pulled from the game. And if you had Lamar Jackson in fantasy, he did not put up big numbers. But why would he with that running game they had going? They were set. Big win for Baltimore, head scratcher for Seattle. And then Buccaneers and Texans. I doubt anyone had this as their highest scoring game of the week. But it was a fucking doozy, this one. Back and forth. Both teams looked like they could win. You had short touchdown runs. You had long-distance hitters, like 75-yard touchdown pass from C.J. Stroud to Noah Brown. You had a backup running back taking kickoffs after Texans kicker Fairbairn got injured. Dare Ogunbowale even went out and hit a 29-yard field goal to put Houston ahead 33-30. And if you're like, that name sounds familiar, even though I butchered it, but it is familiar because Dare is the brother of WNBA superstar Arika Ogunbowale, who I talk about nonstop on this podcast because she's a gunner and I love watching her play. But anyway, that field goal put them ahead. But Baker did his own thing, and Mayfield went down the field, hitting Cade Otton for a touchdown pass to put Tampa ahead with 46 seconds. And they looked over. Not for number 2 overall pick, CJ Stroud. He led his team down the field, hitting Tank Dell with a beautiful throw to put Houston up with 6 seconds left. That was Stroud's 5th touchdown pass of the day. He also threw for 470 yards, a rookie record, and he broke my heart in fantasy football this week because I played against him. What a game for CJ Stroud. Houston's got their franchise quarterback, and then some. Wow. But Cardinals and Browns in this one, the only thing keeping the Cardinals in games, it seemed, were Josh Dobbs, and he's brought his match touched over to Minnesota. So how would Clayton Tune do filling in until Kyler Murray's ready to go in a week or two? He showed up, and this tune did not sound so sweet. This Cleveland front line destroyed the young man, leading him to 2 interceptions and throwing for only 58 yards passing. Deshaun Watson looked pretty good in his return. The Browns, poof, they cruised to an easy 27-0 win over the Cardinals. Even with Kyler Murray back, well, I don't know. They just look defeated in this one, but they need Kyler Murray back to see what this Cardinals team can do. You had the Colts and Panthers number 1 overall pick, Bryce Young, saw his good friend CJ Stroud go off earlier in the game with those rookie numbers I was telling about. But the Colts had other ideas. Bryce Young would throw 2 pick sixes in the game. Both the Colts, Kenny Moore the second. One, he returned 49 yards, one for 65. Bryce Young would hit DJ Shark in the third, but his second pick six really sealed the fate for this team. Gardner Minshew did what he had to do to get the Colts the win, and Jonathan Taylor he came in a little late to the season after that trade request, but he's starting to come along, and the Colts get the easy win. I mentioned Antonio Pierce with the Raiders. He used to be with the Giants, but now he's coaching the Raiders. And how would he fare going up against the Giants, the team he used to play for? And they were starting Aiden O'Connell over Jimmy G, and the rookie looked good, mostly handing the ball off as the Giants proceeded to run it down the Raiders proceeded to run it down the Giants' throats. Touchdown run by Jacoby Myers, and then you had 2 more by Josh Jacobs. Suddenly the Raiders are up 24-0 at halftime. Daniel Jones returned to this game from injury, but he'd leave again, and it's feared it might be a torn ACL. And so he's done for the year, and it's going to be the Tommy DeVito show the rest of the season, which could be a tough go for the Giants. But, Raiders look good. They take this one easily, scoring 30 points for the first time all season, and they actually look happy out there. I mean, maybe the cure for a team is firing your coach and GM and offensive coordinator, or maybe it's just going up against the Giants. But either way, the Raiders look really good playing under Antonio Pierce. They look like a much hungrier team, these Raiders. But I'm just hoping they've kind of learned from their mistakes. We remember after John Gruden had to resign, after all those emails came out in 2021, Rich Bisaccia comes in, the interim, takes this team to the playoffs. And how do they reward Rich? Stripping him of head coaching duties and hiring some clown named Josh McDaniels. Fast forward to now, similar situation. Clown Josh McDaniels out. Interim coach Antonio Pierce comes in. He's looking like he's doing well. I think he'll turn this team around and, dare I say, make the playoffs. I don't know. That's a big stretch, but they're looking inspired. And as long as they keep forcing the ball to Devontae, and if Jacobs can get going, this defense is good enough. So maybe if this does happen, let's reward Antonio Pierce by letting him keep the job rather than rewarding his good work with a dismissal and hiring another white clown coach to come in and set you back a few more years. We'll see. I'm rooting for Pierce and the Raiders. He's doing good things there. Cowboys-Eagles, perhaps the game of the week. This divisional battle could have gone either way. Like, at halftime, Cowboys led 17-14. To start the third, Hurts would hit Devontae Smith. Beautiful touchdown pass, put the Eagles ahead. Then later in the quarter, he'd hit A.J. Brown for a touchdown catch. But on that drive, beautiful pass Dallas Goedert made. He injured his arm, and it's rumored he may have a break, so he might be done for the season. We'll see. Hopefully the injuries aren't as bad as they're saying, because Goddard's really important to that team. But after that last touchdown by A.J. Brown there, the Cowboys, with 6 minutes left, Dak would hit Tolbert to make it a 5-point game, so they want to go for two to make it three. They converted it on a Dak scramble, but the replay showed you could see he stepped out of bounds, keeping it a 5-point game. But they would get another chance. The defense would hold up, and Dak would get a drive. I mean, it's a lot harder going for a touchdown rather than three. But they were moving the ball, and the Eagles were dropping. Bradbury had to leave with injury. Slay had to leave with injury. So they were really thin in the back. You could hear the nerves in the crowd of the Eagles fans. But Bradbury and Slay were able to come back in late, and they helped stop CeeDee Lamb on a fourth down just before the end zone. So big win for the Eagles, taking a firmer grip on the NFC East. And I don't know, you can't totally blame Dak on this one. He was out there trying, but big win. The Eagles are a really good team, and they're showing why. And then you had the nightcap, Bills and Bengals playoff rematch, and Joe Burrow, he was cooking first half. 2 touchdown passes, another one run in by Joe Mixon would counter one by Josh Allen run in. You're 21-7 at halftime after some field goals. Allen would hit Stephon Diggs with a touchdown, and then again on a 2-point conversion. Got a 1-possession game, but that's how it would end. Since Cincinnati's continuing to find their stride, while Buffalo still head scratching as they drop to 5-4. That leaves one game left on the slate for Week 8. You got the Chargers will be visiting the Jets on Monday Night Football. That Jets defense can be really intimidating, even with all the firepower the Chargers have. But they do have injuries, remember. And I think that may cause Herbert to struggle. So it's tough to ask which team do you trust more when both these teams are untrustworthy. So the Chargers should win this game, but saying that makes me think I should pick against them because the Chargers always lose games they should win. So, shocker, Jets win tonight. We'll see. If I'm wrong, I guess I owe you a Coke. But the World Series, unfortunately, wasn't a very watched World Series. The numbers are showing. I was watching. I was there. But Game 3 went way back on Monday. You'd have Brandon Pfaadt starting for Arizona, Scherzer for Texas. Scherzer would leave the game with back tightness after a pitch ricocheted off his back. I mean, that probably hurt. But Adolis Garcia would also leave the game after he swung. The Rangers would win this game 3-1, but it would be announced that Garcia and Scherzer would miss the remainder of the series. So how would the teams bounce back? On Game 4, you'd have Heaney going out for the Rangers while Manta play for the Diamondbacks. And Marte would get a leadoff hit, extending his postseason streak to 20 games. Still crazy. What a way to start a postseason career. But this one really got out of hand. After Jonah Heim's solo bomb in the 8th, it was 11-1. So it was not looking good. Granted, the Diamondbacks did what they did to make it interesting in front of the home crowd. They'd bring it to 11-7, but that's as close as they'd get. And, suddenly they're down 3-1, looking like they're going to lose the World Series. And in Game 5, it's exactly what they did. It was a very close game compared to the previous one. And Garver would put the Rangers up in the 7th. Then in the 9th, in a 1-0 game, Jonah Heim would get a 2-run triple. And then Semien would follow that up with a 2-run home run. Suddenly it's 5-0. And then the Diamondbacks couldn't muster up anything in the bottom of the 9th. Boom, Texas Rangers, your World Series champions. Didn't call that at the beginning of the year. Shortstop Corey Seager won the Willie Mays World Series MVP award. He had 3 home runs and 6 RBIs in the 5 games. And with the World Series win, Bruce Bochy became the 6th manager in MLB history to collect 4 World Series trophies. 3 of those were winning in San Francisco. So congrats to your Texas Rangers. Well done. It was announced this weekend of the Gold Glove winners for the MLB season. The American League, you had first baseman Nathaniel Lowe of the Rangers, second baseman Andres Jimenez of the Guardians. You might remember his sweet punch on Anderson earlier in the year. Matt Chapman, third baseman of the Blue Jays. Rookie shortstop Anthony Volpe of the Yankees, catcher Jonah Heim of the Rangers, Jose Barrios of the Blue Jays, Stephen Kwan of the Guardians, Kevin Kiermaier of the Blue Jays, Adolis Garcia of the Rangers, and utility player Mauricio Dubon for the Astros. So you might have noticed 3 Gold Glovers on the World Series Texas Rangers, as well as 3 for your wild card eliminated Toronto Blue Jays as well. Jump into the National League, the first baseman Christian Walker of the Arizona Diamondbacks, second baseman Nico Horner of the Cubs. First time in 11 years the third base Gold Glove didn't go to Nolan Arenado. It went to Cabrian Hayes of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Dansby Swanson with the Cubs, rookie catcher Gabriel Moreno, who won despite barely having any starts in the regular season, Zach Wheeler of the Phillies for pitching, left fielder Ian Happ of the Cubs, center fielder Brenton Doyle of the Rockies, right fielder Fernando Tatis Jr. of the Padres, and then utility player Ha-Seong Kim for the Padres. And then I mentioned Anderson getting punched in the face by Jimenez earlier. It was announced Chicago White Sox are declining the option on Tim Anderson, so he'll be a free agent going into the season. The shortstop, he's a really good player. He's had some issues the last few years, but if he can get back to the play he was at before, I could see him getting picked up by someone right away. But we'll jump to footy. And during the midweek, you had some domestic cup action going on throughout England, or throughout Europe, sorry. And in England, you had the Carabao Cup, and with that, you had some big results. West Ham beat Arsenal 3-1. Boop, boop, boop. Then you had Liverpool beating Bournemouth 2-1. Everton skunked Burnley 3-0. And Newcastle embarrassed Man U 3-0. And in Germany, they have their Pokal Cup. Biggest upset by a mile or kilometer, depending where you're from, I guess. The third-tier team, Saarbrücken, beating Bayern Munich. Yes, that Saarbrücken beat Bayern Munich 2-1. Huge upset. Another upset, Tier 2 club Paderborn beating Freiburg 3-1, and Wolfsburg also knocked out Leipzig. In Italy, the Coppa Italia had Serie B club Parma beating Serie A club Lecce. And then you had Cagliari beating Udinese, which was probably the biggest upset of the week. But then you had some penalties with Sassuolo beating Spezia, so some little drama there. But we went back to the domestic leagues on the weekend, and to start it off in England, you had Fulham hosting Man U. This looked like it could go Fulham's way, and then Bruno Fernandes would pass one, beautiful one, right into the net off a little bit of a scramble. In his 200th appearance for the club, it was a really big goal for a real lackluster club of late. I don't know, Man U, they just haven't looked very good under Ten Hag. But Brentford hosted West Ham in a goal-filled London derby. Brentford went ahead first, but goals by Mo Kudos and Jared Bowen had the Hammers up at half. But then a West Ham own goal, followed by Nathan Collins' goal, would put Brentford back up and give them the win. Bastards. And then Man City demolished Bournemouth 6-1 at home. Whirlwind of emotion for Sheffield United. They were leading 1-0 at Wolves real late till Bellegarde would score in the 89th minute to tie it up. And then in the 10th minute of stoppage time, Oliver Norwood would score from the penalty spot to give Sheffield United their lead and first win since getting promoted to the Premier League. Crystal Palace would add to Burnley's struggles, beating them 2-0. Everton looked poised for another win until a badly bounced own goal in the 84th minute would equalize for Brighton. And then a highly anticipated game, Newcastle and Arsenal. You'd have some VAR drama, but when all was said and done, you'd have Anthony Gordon's second half goal being the winner, giving Arsenal their first loss of the EPL season. And then Nottingham Forest, this was an emotional game. They hosted Aston Villa. They went ahead in the 5th minute. Then they'd score in the 47th through Mangala to double their lead. But there was already a massive ovation in the 47th minute because you might remember Adam Johnson, who unfortunately passed from sustaining a neck injury in his hockey game, played for the Nottingham Panthers. So in the 47th minute, which was his number, they gave a standing ovation to honor him. It was a really cool scene, really lovely tribute what they did for him. I guess he was like, that team is really important to the community, and it's good to see teams do that for their fallen ones. And Forest would hold on to win 2-0 in the emotional win. And Liverpool will play Luton Town, and Liverpool was dominating the whole game, but in footy fashion, in the 80th minute, Luton Town would go ahead via Chong, and it looked like they might steal it. But then Luis Diaz would score in stoppage time, and he'd raise his shirt, showing a message asking for his father's release, because he's got a lot going on off the field. Like, the National Liberation Army, it's a terrorist group. They kidnapped Diaz's parents. His mom has been released, but his father is still held captive. Like, the Colombian government has announced this. They're trying to get him released. Super scary stuff. So hopefully they can do something to save him, because this guy's living his dream on the footy pitch and he's got to worry about his kidnapped dad. Just a lot of stuff bigger than sports there. There is one game left to be played, and it's a dandy. A London derby between Tottenham and Chelsea. Tottenham are the last unbeaten team now, with Arsenal losing. So with a win, they'll jump back ahead of Man City. If they tie, they'll be equal with them on points. So I see Tottenham beating Chelsea, because I don't really like Chelsea as a team. Sorry, Toad. I know that's your team, but Yeah, I kind of hope they lose. Going to Germany for the Bundesliga, you had a marquee game of the number one and number two the last few years between Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund. Bayern did not feel threatened by the look of it. Harry Kane got another hat trick. They won 4-0. Pretty easy win. Bayern Leverkusen had a dramatic match against Hoffenheim where they would rely on an Alex Grimaldo brace to win 3-2. Cologne and Augsburg would draw. Freiburg would need a stoppage time penalty to secure a point in their draw against Mönchengladbach. Mainz probably the biggest win of the weekend with their shock win over Leipzig to get their literal first win of the year. And poor Union Berlin suffered their 12th loss in a row in all competitions and a 3-0 loss to Eintracht Frankfurt. Brutal for them, but their fans, they're trying to will them some days, but it's tough to see. Heidenheim would end the week with a 2-0 win over Stuttgart. So after 10 matches in Germany, Bayern Leverkusen sit atop the table, Bayern Munich right behind them. Third to sixth place teams all lost this weekend, so that gap grew a little bit. And then Italy, you had a lot of results that went kind of the way you'd expect them to. Napoli beating Salernitana, Inter Milan beating Atalanta, Monza beating Verona, Roma beating Lecce, and Juventus beating Fiorentina 1-0. But a couple surprises had Bologna over Lazio, and probably the biggest surprise of all, Udinese, who had lost earlier this week, beating in the cup game, beat AC Milan at the San Siro. And Inter Milan, they continue to lead the Serie A now with Juventus just behind them. And with that loss, AC Milan sit in the third, 6 points behind Inter, and last year's champions Napoli sit in fourth. There's still 2 games to go on Monday. And then in La Liga, you had a bit of a surprise to start the match week. Atletico Madrid losing to Las Palmas. That was a big one. Girona's continued their great play, beating Osasuna. Real Betis, Valencia, Alaves, and Athletic Club all picked up big wins. And Barcelona would rely on a stoppage time goal by Ronald Araujo to win on the road against Real Sociedad, who's a very good team as well. And although they dominated the whole game, Real Madrid can only get a draw against Rayo Vallecano. Huge result, because with that draw, Real Madrid have now been leapfrogged by Girona, who lead the La Liga after this many games. It's crazy to me. So now Real is 2 points behind the leaders, while Barcelona are 2 points behind their rivals, Real. So craziness in Spain. In France for Ligue 1, the weekend started with PSG thumping Montpellier 3-0. Reims beat Nantes, Monaco beat Brestois, and Le Havre beat Toulouse, and Nice beat Rennes. Both games finished with 10 players. So every other game in the division ended in a draw, including Lyon, who drew with Metz, which means Lyon have now gone 10 matches without a win. Craziness. But a massive tournament that needs some mentioning goes down South America every year. The Copa Libertadores. It had a final between Boca Juniors, Argentinian legendary club, against Fluminense of Brazil. And what a final. Fluminense would go up ahead first in the 36th, but Boca Juniors would equalize in the 72nd. So we'd go to extra time, and in the extra frame, substitute John Kennedy would score in the 99th minute. That would end up being the winning goal, giving the Brazilian side their first ever Copa Libertadores. So much talk goes on about the European tournaments. We got to start talking about this one, and I will learn how to say it better. So that's on me. The MLS, you had a wild LAFC win over Vancouver, so they had advanced in the conference semifinals. But let me say, this MLS playoff system they have with the best out of 3, spacing the games out as far as they do, it loses its luster. I've lost damn near. I'm covering it because I like to cover everything in footy in the leagues and even in North America, but they're making people lose interest in this. They're spreading it out, like I said, and they shouldn't be best of 3 in footy. It's just that I know they're trying to Americanize it or whatever, but I think in the end they're going to have to switch that. One cool thing is Luis Suarez is coming to reunite with Lionel Messi in Inter Miami. They hold Barcelona 2.0 on American soil. We'll see. And I will mention a quick FA Cup. They had FA Cup round 1 in the UK, and shout out to Wrexham. They beat Mansfield Town 2-1, goals by Sam Delby and Super Paul Mullins. So good on them advancing in that tournament. Going to the hockey rink in the NHL, there was some big news this week off the ice when it was announced that the Ottawa Senators will forfeit a first-round draft pick as a result of the punishment from their 2021 trade that sent Evgeny Dadonov to the Golden Knights. And this of course, prompted GM Pierre Dorion to get fired. So brutal start for new ownership in Ottawa. But on the ice, you had the Golden Knights suffering their first regulation loss of the season to the Ducks, but they still sit atop the West. And even like the four top teams in the Pacific Division, they've had some great starts. Vancouver, LA Kings, the before mentioned Ducks, they're all having great starts in that division alongside Vegas. And the Avalanche looked to show they're contenders in the West too, but fell on their faces against the Golden Knights 7-0. Not a good game. But despite that, Colorado's done fairly well this season. Dallas is a little ahead of them, so they've both been leading their division. Out east, Boston has looked like the best team, and everyone else has kind of got this middle tier two pack going. We're wondering which teams are going to emerge. Tampa, Toronto, Carolina, they've all showed signs, but not enough consistency yet. I mean, granted, we've only gotten the double digits of games played, but Austin Matthews leads the league in goals. Elias Pettersson from the Canucks and Jack Hughes from the Devils are tied for point leads. And it's a bit of a bummer for Caps fans as forward Nicholas Backstrom, he's been there forever, a long-time veteran there. He's announced he's got to take a step away from hockey to deal with his long-time injuries. So hopefully he can recover and come back to doing what he loves. And we had some F1 going down in Brazil for the Brazilian GP. Lando Norris would start things off, winning the sprint shootout, barely beating Max Verstappen and teammate Perez there. And then the race on Sunday would all have shit going down before we even raced. Before the race started, Charles Leclerc would set up on the front row, but lost power steering and engine power on the formation lap. So we crashed out before the race would even get going. And then to start the race, shit would hit the fan. You'd have Nico Hulkenberg and teammate Kevin Magnussen and Williams, Alex Albon all colliding, and you'd have Magnussen and Albon flying off the track, taking out Oscar Piastri as well. A tire flew off someone's car and hit Danny Ricciardo, so glad he's okay, because that's scary stuff there. And that caused a red flag right off the start, so let's get going. Just kidding, we're stopping. And after things returned, we would you'd only finish with 14 drivers in this race. Six drivers would not even finish. And who would win this? None other than Max Verstappen, of course. His record for wins in a season continues to grow as he now sits at 17. So good for him and Team Red Bull there. Lando would finish second. Surprise, surprise, Fernando Alonso would bounce back to round out the podium, and he barely did it. He beat Max's teammate Sergio Perez by 53 thousandths of a second. So that's as close as you can get. Some NCAA football. We had some big games in college, some SEC matchups. Mississippi won a close one against Texas A&M by 3. You had Georgia beat Missouri. Alabama won their rival game against LSU. Clemson picked up a much-needed win over Notre Dame. OK State, with their surprising win over Oklahoma in their last ever Bedlam series. A series of 119 years. That's crazy. So Oklahoma's, remember, they're leaving the Big 12 to go to the SEC next year. So this was big for the OK State Cowboys to stick it to their rivals. I got that wrong. I thought the Sooners would win. I also predicted Dion's Colorado to beat Oregon State. They did not. I did have Arizona beating UCLA correct, though. And the best Pac-12 game of the weekend was Washington and USC. Caleb Williams and Michael Penix, two future NFL quarterbacks, went at it. Williams made some big plays for the Trojans, but in the end, the Huskies and Penix made them more plays. So it was tough to see Caleb Williams, crying in his family's arms after the loss. But it does show he does at least care about winning, which is, I think, pretty important. But Washington continues to fly. You look for them to continue good things. This could be a championship-looking team we're looking at. Wouldn't that be something in our last year of existence, really, with all those teams in the Pac-12? But some other big games, you had Michigan over Purdue, big, Oregon over Cal, Penn State over Maryland, Utah over Arizona State, Louisville over Virginia Tech, and Florida State over Pitt. Some big games to circle on the calendar for next week. You have Michigan, Penn State, and that'll be a big Big Ten matchup. Tennessee, Missouri, Mississippi, and Georgia, Florida and LSU, USC and Oregon, and probably the best of the bunch, the Utah Utes versus the before-mentioned Washington Huskies. Out of those games, I have Michigan, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, Oregon, and Washington winning. So I only had one last week, so let's see if I can keep those college picks going. And just like I've done before, way too much basketball knowledge written down here. So if you want some in-depth NBA coverage, I'm dropping a little NBA, another week 2 roundup of everything that's happened. Power rankings have changed a little bit. So, yeah, really cool NBA stuff, which brings us into our short. For this short, I didn't know where to go here, and we had some rain, which made some icy roads. Had me thinking of some, bad times on icy roads. And then it hit me. I had this short. It was a lifetime ago. Total different relationship years ago. After some, bedroom fun, it was discovered a contraception had broken. Not being on any kind of birth control, not with children at the time. Not a good mix. So I was like, shit. So I rushed out. Remember, it's icy. Going to a store that's closing right away, right? Like closing soon. It was about to close, so a little pep in the step, and I was going. And in the middle of these roads, they have I don't know, these signs saying go in a circle. I don't know why they have these things there. I think it's mostly of a speed deterrent. But yeah, I had to go around this. But as I went to go around, my car just went straight. That sign that was in the way scraped up the whole side of my vehicle, and it did not sound good. Nothing is more defeating than having your car slide, and you're just like, fuck me, I can't do anything here. So yeah, it slid, scratched the shit, and I was like, fuck. So I got out to have a look at it, obviously, because the sign looked fucked. So I look, and as I'm going to look, I underestimated the slipperiness, I guess, and I slipped, hit the back of my head on the road. I don't know how many times I've hit this fucking head. We need like a Reggie Ray scoreboard from Not Another Teen Movie, really. But anyway, you're not too pumped after this now, so I'm cussing. I think I kicked the vehicle a few times, just yelling, ah! Because I don't know, it was not a very fun series of events going down. Eventually get to the store just on time, grab the Plan B, which is associate promptly named correctly, I guess. But yeah, it worked out. No kid. Things worked out. Everything happens for a reason, right? Out of that relationship, in a better one, married now for coming up 16 months. Life works in weird ways. So yeah, that's episode 35 in the books. Be careful on the ice out there, people. And if you're not in a place with ice, well, fuck y'all. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, not a fan of winter. But anyway, thanks for coming out. Episode 35 is in the books. Just keeping this thing rolling. And like I said, there will be a little NBA feature drop later this week where I will continue to talk basketball like a maniac and some basketball junkie full of basketball Jones. But until then, thanks again for coming out. Episode number 35 in the books. Appreciate it, guys. You take care. Red City out.